deal going with one of them up 3 or 4 blocks, one of the companies that I work for. And I said, look, I live right here at this corner. They got to break through this corner before they get up into your neck of the woods. I'm going to try to watch this area and see what's going on here, and I'll give you the sign if they break through and they're on their way up your direction. So I was kind of a crazy woman there. I was running back and forth, trying to take pictures and videos, and there's tear gas going off, and I was smart enough to stand back. I mostly was just standing back and watching it and giving reports uptown. Fortunately, they didn't seriously break through. The police were able to keep them back here. So the masses were not able to get through. It was kind of stupid because you don't have to get through in one block. You go one block down and back up and you're back in that neighborhood too. So you could see that it was more about the fight. They just wanted to have fun with the fight than seriously get through, because they could have gotten through if they wanted to. But thankfully they didn't, and the neighborhood was spared again. And by the way, my mall is so far still there. This is the tall building that I was talking about in the background. My balcony looked out on that. That was my view from my balcony. It was quite stunning. And the Chilean flag, that is not the Texas flag, that is the Chilean flag, although they are very similar. Have we seen this before, ACAB?
All cops are bastards. That was in another.
Yes.
No, all cops are beautiful.
Oh, you saw it on another side?
Yeah, the one with the monument.
Yes. All over there.
Bastarde.
Yes, all over there. But this is from English. I don't know why they used English, but it makes me wonder again. So where did this expression come from, and why were they using this in Chile too? It's not in Spanish, it's in English. Do you guys all know what it is? It's all cops are bad. I'm going to use the nice word. It's not big bad, but you get
it's coordinated.
But these are the things that make you wonder, hey, why were they using in English? That just doesn't make sense. They don't even speak English.
So it can be used universally. Exactly.
I guess, but who is it used by?
Instigators.
Instigators. And as I'm saying again, I'm not standing as an expert here. We have an expert here in the room who could tell you this, but I am not the expert on all of this. I'm just a witness to it, and I'm here to show you the similarities between what was happening there and what's happening here. This was a political party building from the right, I'm pretty sure. And it says they deserve this. They're assassins. Golpistas are people who initiate a coup. And the Anarchy sign you see on there also. And they dragged all the furniture out, and you can see a sofa sitting there. They smashed all the computers to bits. Got to send the right message, right? All right, why are we? Toll roads were a big issue in this battle. When you're a third world country, you don't have money for infrastructure. And so also with Pinochet, he said, in order for our country to have a successful economy, we need infrastructure. We don't even have roads from north to south. I mean, not enough to really be able to make an economy work. And so he opened it up for bidding for concessionaries. I think that's the English word. Concessionaries, which are large investment companies who will come in and build private infrastructure. So it could be airports, it could be harbors, and it could be private roads. We don't have a lot of that in the United States. Maybe more than you would know. I had no awareness of it whatsoever before, how this all worked, but thankfully 2 of the companies that I work for were high-level people in these concessionary companies and explained all how it worked. So these agreements are made internationally, or made with the government of Chile, and they usually have a 10 to 30 year expiration, and in the contract is agreed how much they can raise the price based on how many cars that they think will be using the road. And so the prices they thought were getting too high, and kind of like here in the US, the trucks have to pay more because you do more wear and tear. But the truck drivers decided, no, this is not cool. While we're protesting, let's all get in on the act and everybody get their grievances out. And our grievance is that we should be able to use the roads for free, which means nationalize the roads, right? I had a few students who protested this too. We shouldn't have to pay for our roads. And I said, okay, that's one way to look at it. I said, do you own a car? And she said, no. And I said, but once or twice a year you rent a car and you go to the south. Yeah. So you have to pay like $12 on tolls to get to the south. Yeah. That we shouldn't have to pay for that. I said, okay, well, if we nationalize it, then everybody has to pay for the roads. Whether you own a car or not, you're gonna have to pay for the roads. Oh, no, I don't want that. So they had no understanding of privatization and the benefits, because I have to tell you, the roads in Chile are better than any of the roads here. They are perfect. The government requires it of them. All of the supermarkets, not all of them, many of the supermarkets were raided, and most of them set on fire either during the raids where people died who were in there looting the place died, but a lot of them were set on fire and completely destroyed. Not understanding again that you destroyed your own supermarkets, and who wants to come back and invest and rebuild that supermarket when you just burned it down and looted it? They're not going to say, hey, let's burn a supermarket into your neighborhood again. Walmart actually said they brought 6 lawsuits against the state of Chile saying you didn't protect us, and you should have understood in legal agreement that you're required to protect us. Thankfully, they withdrew the lawsuit, because if they had gone forth, who would be paying if they're suing the state? The taxpayers. Yeah. Did you have a question?
If they destroyed all those grocery stores, what were they eating?
You just have to go a lot farther for your supermarket. So mine was actually spared, but the mall was shut down because it was under constant attack. It was shut down for about 6 weeks, so I didn't have a supermarket that I could walk to. And all the people from the poorer neighborhoods were moving into the better neighborhoods to come into the supermarkets. So the concierge of my apartment said, you want to go to a supermarket, I suggest you get in a taxi and go way uptown. So I had to go way uptown. And you cannot believe what that looked like. So they didn't want too many people in the stores. Number one, because they couldn't control it if there was going to be a riot and a looting. And so they limited the number of people who could go into the stores. So when you arrived at the store, there's big, long lines, and you had to wait in the lines. Now, the nice stores were really good. They served us water and were very friendly and kept us happy while we were waiting 2 hours to get into the store. But imagine the stress, too. When I was in the stores, and this was first beginning, my fear of a spark, again, was tremendous. And so I was on red alert the whole time. First of all, there was, what do you call it when everybody's hoarding going on. And so the store was doing their very best. They had super extra employees trying to refill the aisles as fast as it was getting taken down. Because the sense I had was, if I come around the corner and there's nothing on those shelves, I'm going to panic and I'm going to start hoarding myself. This is just your natural reaction. And I remember trying to say to myself, stay calm, keep breathing. Even though they limited the number of people there were way too many people in there, and we were stressed, and everybody was trying to think the same thing. Like, one thing happens, and we're just going to fill this shopping cart and run. So pretty tense times. So this was the 1 million man protest. So the funny thing was I knew that there were issues within Chile. I knew that there had been protests. But how did all of a sudden, from one day to the next, 1 million people come out to protest? I'm thinking, what do you guys have all to protest about? I don't get it. But what they were protesting, that they said, and it seemed like everything was on the board, literally everything. But primarily, the primary things were the cost of public transportation. That was the trigger, that was the spark. The private tolls. The private pension funds that they felt were not what was promised to them. The cost and the quality of education, private versus public. And there is a huge difference, and it needed to be fixed. The healthcare system, private and public, I experienced both. There is a huge difference, and it needs to be fixed. Income inequality. Okay, there's income inequality everywhere, except in Northern European countries where they can't handle that, and so pretty well everybody earns almost the same thing, and you have no incentive for trying to start businesses or excelling in anything. And the high cost of living, and it is expensive to live in Chile. It's the end of the world. Do y'all know where it is? It's like the long tail. It's 3,000 miles long and 100 miles wide. It's the strangest country you've ever seen. For your information, the reason why is the Andes Mountains cuts that way, and that was the border, because Andes are pretty hard to cross. So, the Plaza Italia. Beautiful plaza, pride and joy, all celebrations happen here. When you win the World Cup, when you win any good football game, the whole darn city, I would say a good 1 million people show up here to celebrate. But when there's trouble, That's where they show up to. There was tear gas going off, the police were trying to chase them out of there, and that ticked them off. They felt they had a right for peaceful protest, which we're hearing that too. Hey, I'm all for peaceful protests. But what the peaceful protesters didn't understand, when you are peaceful protesting, the rioters and the looters and the Antifa and the Black Lives Matters are right behind you. They're going to take advantage. You are just the door to open for them to follow and to start the trouble right behind them. And that's what happened every single time the peaceful protesters came out. The troublemakers were right behind them, and they started the trouble, the smashing of the windows, and the police had to come in, and the tear gas came in, and the rubber bullets were flying, and this is what it looked like afterwards. And they decided to call this now Plaza Dignidad, Plaza Dignity. Very dignified looking, doesn't it? Yeah. So what are some of the deeper reasons? I think there were some really deep reasons to this. People think they know why, but I think it takes many, many years. As I would say, it has taken here in the United States too. The John Birch Society for 60 years has been warning that this was here within us. And what did you all call us? The loony bins, the conspiracy theorists. You know what? You can't deny it now. It's here. They're saying it themselves. They're telling you this is what they're all about. They're telling you they want to destroy everything good in this country. So some people saw this within our country long ago, and most people didn't want to face it. That could never happen here. Well, it's been a slow, incremental thing that's happened here, and not looking good for us right now. But also what happened in Chile is loss of faith in institutions. The religious aspect, they're a very Catholic culture. Most all of South America is Catholic. And the sex abuse scandal from the priests, they got hit hard. Chile was one of the hardest countries, and the people were incredibly pissed and turned against the church. And very few people attend church. They'll still call themselves Catholics, but very few attend. If you go to the churches, it's mostly elderly people who are in the churches. The police, when I arrived 7 years ago, had a great reputation, and over the years, they were using force against force. And this is the message that I want to say: beware when you ask for force against force. Force against force begets more force. It just escalates the situation. So I actually think that Trump has made a wise decision in not bringing down the hammer on him, which many of us just wanted, right? You said, we got to stop these thugs. This is not okay. They've got to be stopped. I think actually this was the better strategy to say, let them just reveal themselves. Let them show themselves for what they are. The people will turn against them. Just let them show what they're all about, and the people will turn against them. But if you start bringing in heavy force, what happened in Chile was that sadly, the president before, Michelle Bachelet, she became the UN High Commissioner of Human Rights. Yeah. So the former president starts blabbing to the world about all of the human rights violations by the current president and his police force and the military. So this is the prior president. God, sounds familiar here. But it was, first of all, let me ask you, how many of you people that didn't hear it from me knew anything about this going on in Chile? How did you know about it?
Drudge.
That didn't hear it from me? Drudge. Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm here because I knew that if Chile was even, that was on my short list of
Yeah.
countries to visit.
Yeah. Sorry to take it off. If you want to go there and visit and bring the last of my stuff back. So the loss of trust. So the police trust went down, the government went down, and when you don't trust your institutions, you're working on shaky grounds. Do we have trust and faith in our institutions? We certainly don't in the education system. We certainly don't in our government anymore. The churches, man, they're losing their way also. And I thought the saddest part was the loss of trust and respect of each other. I had never seen a culture that had so little reason to distrust, and yet distrust was greater in Chile than any other Latin American country. And I thought the corruption was still reasonably low. I mean, I didn't like the attitude there, and that was one of the reasons I decided I had enough. The attitude was, somebody's trying to screw you, so you better screw them before they screw you. And that just was in every interaction, even in the stores. The customer service didn't exist. Am I allowed to say that word now?
Sure.
Yeah, so appropriate. Anti-system. So this is what you're noticing here in the United States. What they really want is the destruction of capitalism, and the destruction of religion, and the destruction of family, and the destruction of liberty, and the destruction of everything that made America great. That's what they want. They want to see the downfall of all of it. And they've been undermining it for a long time. So you know what? We're not that hard to take down anymore. John Birch Society had an interview with Yuri what's his name? Bezmenov in 1980, 78, 80, 1980. You would need to go to YouTube and watch it if you haven't watched it already. It's G. Edward Griffin interviewing, just say Yuri, it's Y-U-R-I, and it'll come up. And he was a former KGBI agent, and he explained exactly what they were doing here. He was a, what do they call, no, he left Russia, what do you call it? Defected. He defected from Russia, and so he was telling and explaining what Russia was doing to undermine and to take down the United States, and that he said it really only took a generation. I think it's taken at least 2, I think we're going on 3 generations that they've been working really hard at, so I think it took them a little bit longer than they wanted, but they've been undermining this so much that he said you will fall like ripened fruit into our hands, and now we're kind of seeing that. So they want anti-system. So anything that we stand for, they are against. But my question to you is, why don't you ask all these people who want this and say, what is your plan? What do you want to replace it with? They will not have an answer. And if someone doesn't have an answer for what they want to replace it with, beware. Beware. Because all they want to do is destruction. They don't have a solution. They don't know a better system. They just know that they don't want this one. How dangerous can you get? Do you know what happens when you take something out? You just left a void. And what usually comes into that void is never better than what you had before.
Power fills a vacuum.
Power fills a vacuum,
Criminals.
yes. Loss of civility due to feeling unheard after many years. I did sense this within their culture. Anger and frustration. They've been out in the streets protesting so often, and they were generally peaceful protests, but the government never listened, never changed anything, would tweak a little thing here or there, but it never changed or fixed the system. So their anger was growing. These are just some statistics. I'm not going to get into it real deep, but what I want to show you here is that they show on a survey between May and December. So remember, the protests were in October. So the pension funds in May, before the protests, 45% had some issues with it. Suddenly after the protests, 65% had a problem with it. Pension systems didn't change during those months. Why did suddenly 20% more think that there was a problem with them? The healthcare system, about a 20% swing. Education, about a 10% swing. This is the interesting one, the crime. The crime went backwards. So in May, 50% thought that crime was something that needed to be solved. After the protests, only 25% thought that crime was the issue. Which tells me, in looking at this is what propaganda does. This is what the mob does. This is what the protests do, is you start to believe whatever you keep hearing over and over and over again. You start to believe that. And the bottom one here is constitutional reform, and that's a big one, and I am going to get more into that. Trust. So the trust also dramatically went down. I understand the distrust in the police. So you can see that the trust in the police was close to 60% before the protests, and down to about 15, 17% after the protests. But the Catholic Church also went down. The newspapers went down. The government went down. The Congress went down. The political parties, all trust went down. This I'm not going to get really big into, but also the one highlighted is about reforming the Constitution. And before the protests, only 3% thought that that was a big, high issue, and after the protests, 7%. Did the Constitution change? No. So what changed the minds of them so quickly about these things, other than propaganda and hearing the same thing over and over again? So what were they demanding? The number one thing they were demanding was the president to resign. Gosh, have we heard this before? Because all of this is the fault of the president, right? And the most disturbing one was a new constitution. This next picture I took, so this was on one of the days of the protest, where I was just kind of hanging back up against the wall, getting ready to run if I had to. The tear gas came too close, the rocks were getting too close, so the police ran in. I was going to run. But this little guy, how old do you think he is?
15.
11.
I'd say 14, 15, something like that. So I see a sign. He wants 40-hour work weeks, which they are 45 right now. Hey man, I'm all with you. I thought 45 was ridiculous. All with you. But he also wanted free abortions. And the last one is a new constitution. And it says, but why? Why change it, it says. And so I said, hey, I'm just curious, you got this sign here. I've been hearing about this change in the Constitution. You've obviously read it, right? Yeah. I said, could you tell me specifically what articles in the Constitution do you need to see changed? Well, all of it. I said, well, why all of it? Well, it was written under a dictatorship. And I said, yeah, granted, it was written under a dictatorship. But my understanding is that there's been 200 amendments to this Constitution. Everything objectionable was taken out. And in 2005, you all had a referendum, and y'all voted to accept the Constitution as is. So what's wrong with it? And he couldn't tell me, and I finally said, you haven't read the Constitution, have you? And he said, grandma conscience again. He said, no, I haven't. So I got that out of him, like, pretty ridiculous to put that on a sign when you don't know what you're talking about, little boy. I love this. So the second big mistake that I felt that President Piñera made was the demand was first to him resign. He hasn't so far. And the second was to agree to a referendum to rewrite the Constitution. This was pretty disturbing because working for the Birch Society, I've been well trained on this. If we open that door, people, the people who are going to be involved in this, they have some pretty sinister plans. Now, the primary plan that they have for Chile, and it's worked in many other countries, is the first thing that they want to change is get rid of supermajorities and make it a simple majority. Because that way, it's a whole lot easier to get what you want. And when you think of the people who vote, do you think it might be a little bit dangerous to have 51% of the people rule 49% of the people? Or should we maybe make it a little bit harder to make things pass? So this is one of the things that I know that they're going to push through with the rewrite of the Constitution. So there is a small group, and this is where I gave up hope on Chile. The biggest protest that I've seen, this is the rechazo, which is to reject the vote to change the Constitution. The biggest protest was only about 60 to 80 people who came out. Was pretty intimidating because you have to know that the people who are against you have been very, very violent. And so you had to be pretty bold to be out there, and you had to know that probably 70% of the population there was against what you were doing. I thought it was tremendous that they wrote this in English. They did this because they wanted the media to see this. The media lies to the world about us. Chile is under communist and terrorist attack. So there are people within Chile who recognize it, but not enough. I want to add one more thing about this as far as the Constitution goes. I wonderfully became good friends with many Venezuelans who had fled Venezuela to come to Chile because there was no opportunity to survive in Venezuela. And so most Venezuelans' families sent at least one or two of their family members out of the country to work to send enough money so that they could survive in Venezuela. That's honestly the only way people are surviving in Venezuela. Either you work for the government or you have kids that are out of the country working and sending money back to you every year. So these good friends from Venezuela said, I said, so what do you think about all this? And they said, with near tears in their eyes, they said, this is deja vu all over again. This is exactly what they did to us in Venezuela. And you know what? We were the protesters. We were the ones who voted for Chavez. We were the ones who voted for a new constitution. We were the ones who supported all the protesters. They lied, and we believed it. And I said, so what are you doing about this here in Chile? And they say, we try to tell every Chilean this. And I said, and what do the Chileans say? They say the exact same thing that the Cubans said to us. The Cubans said the same thing, don't fall for the trap. This is how we lost our country. And they said, you know what the Chileans say? They say, we're not Venezuela. That would never happen to us. And now, if we try to tell Americans, this is a trap, and we're walking right into it, and you who are enabling BLM and Antifa and anyone who is fighting against the good aspects of America are enabling them and supporting them. And it's a trap, and one that you will regret for the rest of your life, as many, the majority of Cubans, know to this day, and the Venezuelans. Both Cuba and Venezuela were highly successful nations. Argentina was a very highly successful nation, and all of them were taken down through violent revolt and communism, and the people willingly helped them until it was too late. This is my warning. So the funny thing is, when I first started giving this presentation in January, the title of it was, Could This Happen Here? I had to change the title. How does this happen? I think it happens in multiple ways. This was my observations from Chile, but I think that it relates to here too. General discontent of the people. There's things wrong. We all know there's things wrong in this country. And there's enough reason to be angry about things that aren't working well. Economic illiteracy. Wow, I just told you the history of Chile. Do you think the Chileans know that history that I just told them? Do you think that in Chile they teach the beauty of free market economics? Do you think they teach them that it was because of implementing of the free market into Chile that they all are prospering? That instead of 70% prosperity, 70% poverty, they now only have 7% poverty? Do you think that anybody has taught them that? No. And in fact, early on in my years here, in talking to these general managers that were my clients, I said, why are you guys not teaching this? If you guys aren't teaching this, you're going to lose it. I could see that this could happen. I didn't actually think it would happen, and certainly not while I was there, but I could see how the potential for it was there. Historical revisionism. Do you think that they were teaching what I just told you about Pinochet and his good intentions for the country? No, he was a bloody mass murderer. Entitlement mentality. Gosh, have we heard that here a little bit? Victimization culture. Gosh, have we heard that here? And the harvesting of the seeds of discontent. Communism is planting the seeds of discontent and watering and fertilizing them over years. And it builds and it grows until all it takes is a spark and it flashes. Sorry, you got that already. This is more just the statistics on here showing the inflation in 1990 was 22%. In 2018, it was brought down to 2%, and many other things. The metro stations went from 41 to 136. I think they're now up to like 180 metro stations. So making everybody's life better. Their lives generally are all getting better. I like this. With virtually no knowledge or interest in history, the masses simply take their unprecedented high living standards under capitalism for granted. Do you think Americans really understand how we got where we are? Do you think Americans really understand that everywhere I go, people throughout the world still wish that they could live in America? Now, I have to say some of them, it's kind of a fantasy. They think that America is what they see on TV. Not quite. But do you think Americans recognize how fortunate they are to be Americans? I hate this word right now, but do you think we're pretty privileged to have been born in America?
Blessed.
We are blessed. Thank you. We are blessed to be Americans. But I have to tell you, not enough Americans know this. And what Art was saying about my time outside the country, man, I don't think anybody can have more appreciation for America than somebody like me who's lived outside 17 years. seen all the good and the bad about America outside, and still sees this is the best thing we got going. And if we don't save this, the whole globe is in trouble. So the question, what's next for Chile? So the protests broke out in October. They were continuing all the way through the middle of March, and you all know what happened the middle of March. The news broke out with this serious virus, and Chile, like the whole rest of the world, freaked out. Border closings, horrible time for any of you who were out of the country at that time. Am I going to make it back to my country before they shut the border and not even let me move? So fortunately, I was here. It was March 14th. I was going to fly the next day back to Chile on the 15th. And I paced the floor for a couple of hours trying to decide, do I get on the plane, do I go? I thought, I can't risk it. Where am I gonna be okay getting stuck? And I thought, I sure don't want to be stuck in Chile during this time. So I canceled my flight 24 hours before that time and said, I guess I'm here, but I think it not wise to get on that. So things were still in protest, but then the lockdowns began, and through the media scaring and the numbers and what was happening in Chile, the protesters decided, okay, maybe it is better to go home and to end this protest for now. I've seen new memes. I wish I would have put it up here as a slide. It says protest 2.0 recharging. We know what they've got planned. So the administration knows too. We got you under lockdown right now, and things are peaceful. And the lockdown there right now is extreme. They're in the winter, and so their numbers are quite high because it's winter. That's when everybody gets sick. And you can, at the moment, you're only allowed out of your house twice per week with police permission. You have to go on the website and get your piece of paper that gives you permission. It blocks you out after 2 times, and there's only specific things that you can do. And so, you've got to plan your doctor's visit or grocery shopping and decide on that, but twice per week is when you're going to get out of the house. So that's the short term. In October is still planned the referendum. My guess is that by September they have to let them out. It's their Independence monthly celebration. It's not a daily celebration, it's the whole month. And I don't think they can hold them down any longer. It will have been 6 months of severe quarantine. And imagine living in a big city, in an apartment, without even a balcony. And you're not even allowed out for 6 months other than to go grocery shopping. And the police are in the street, actually the military are in the street, only to check your papers. Have we heard that one before? Your papers, please. So the long term is what made me decide to leave Chile. I had a business that took me 7 years to build. It was finally thriving. I was so excited. I was going to branch out and start 2 more franchises. I had succeeded in Chile. I'd figured out the formula. I had a friend in Sao Paulo, Brazil, who was going to start a franchise. And many of my clients had been Spaniards. And many of the companies that I work with were Spanish, and I have a quote-unquote sister in Madrid. And so my next plan was in September, I was going to go to Spain and start a franchise there. So I was riding high, things were going well, my future was pretty well set. But first of all, the virus knocked out my business. The quarantine, I should say, killed my business, 80% of it gone. So my plans for Spain has been devastated by this virus too. Their economic situation is horrible, and in fact, the communists are doing a darn good job of trying to take over Spain also. So those plans have been nixed for a while, so I am here. That's the good news. The bad news is the long term for Chile. The referendum will be in October. As soon as they let them out, the protests are going to start. They're going to be nasty. It's going to be pure intimidation. It's going to be pure terrorism to get what they want. And so my guess is, this is just my guess, 70% of the people are going to vote for wanting the Constitution changed because they're ignorant, because they don't know, and obviously we need something better than we have right now, right? And so you're going to take the gamble, throw the dice, and say anything's got to be better than this, right? Knowing that the odds of them wanting to change the Constitution, I see no hope. And I see that this is going to be a long, slow tear down and destruction of Chile. And I didn't want to be a part of it. and I wasn't feeling safe there anymore. And now that the virus is pretty well knocked out my business, I'm going to hang on to it for a little while longer, see if I can rebuild it. But I now have no hope for the country of Chile, and I'm very sad to say that. The opposition is too small, really, really too small. I don't know that they could do a good enough job of educating people before then, and now that everybody's locked down, there is no education. They're all just at home recharging, ready for the next thing. So that's the next for Chile. So what's next for the US? The same, or can we stop this? I love Sun Tzu, The Art of War. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. So, I just had a thought right now. I have to share this. Mike Oliver, what was the word I told you all the time? I said, don't use the C word.
Oh, the F word, the C word, and the S word.
Yeah, which are?
Fascism, socialism, and communism.
Yeah. I used to tell him all the time because he said, you commies, you look...
Fascists.
Especially the C word. I'm like, stop using the C word. Here I am. How many times have I used it? Rub it in, Mike. Afterwards you could rub it in. So who is the enemy? I think we now have to accept it. They're saying it themselves. They're not hiding this anymore. It is the Marxists. It is those who want to destroy everything good in America. That is who our enemy is. Now we need to know, who are we ourselves? I think because you're here, you're already like me. You know darn well who we are. Americanism is something worth fighting and dying for. Our founding fathers gave their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And I think it's time for that again. This is not going to get any better. This is not going to go away. They are not going to give up. And they got their foot in the door. Not only did they get their foot in the door, they kicked the door down. And they're here now. And what are we going to do about it?
Shoot them.
Well, violence with violence.
Violence with violence, and it's going to escalate. So give us Granny Warriors a chance first. And maybe a few other organizations like the Birch Society. And Northwest Property Owners. So what are we up against? The agents of terror, and they want the overthrow of law and order. This was in Chile too. They handicapped the police so much. I didn't tell that. So they were shooting with rubber bullets, and Michelle Bachelet made sure that the whole world knew how many people were losing their eyes, and that the police in Chile were targeting eyeballs when they were shooting rubber bullets, and that was a human rights violation, and the rubber bullets should be eliminated because too many people were getting hurt with the rubber bullets, so they were no longer allowed to use rubber bullets. Then the tear gas, they were left with tear gas and water cannons. But the tear gas, I can tell you from having had to live in it for 2 days, it is suffocating. It is hard to breathe with all of your windows closed, and I lived on the 15th floor. That tear gas was all around us. And so certain areas were under tear gas constantly, and the neighbors were just saying, come on, we gotta breathe. You gotta stop the tear gas. So then they were left with water cannons. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm telling you the next step is they're gonna say, those water cannons knock you right off your feet. Somebody could get hurt that way. And they're gonna eliminate they're gonna eliminate the water cannons. And then they're gonna come out and say, okay, you can use squirt guns.
Yeah.
So this is how they eliminate the police. If they can't defund them, just take away all of their weapons so that they can't have anything to fight back with. Yes?
Were the protests in the country too, or were they primarily in big cities?
Good question. Mostly in the big cities, rarely in the smaller towns. Sometimes they would go in and smash some windows, but nothing like the big cities. Oh, sorry. Oh, I didn't finish that slide. The other thing that we are up against is the well-meaning falling into the trap.
Useful idiots.
Yes.
Yep.
And I don't say that in a disrespectful way. That is actually the communist term that the communists called them, is the useful idiots. So the bleeding hearts, when you can get to the bleeding hearts and say, look, life is tougher when you're black. I mean, most of us could agree, it probably is. But that doesn't make us a racist for saying, hey, but we gotta be treated all the same. You know, black lives matter, but our lives matter too, and the Asians and the Chinese, you know, all of our lives matter, right? So the well-meaning falling into the trap are actually our enemies also. And if we don't get to them, if we do not educate that they're supporting the wrong side, we're in trouble. And that's our job, is to get to those people and educate them quick as to who they're supporting and where these people are taking this. This is not about racism. This is not about racism. And the communist term that I always heard from Alex Newman, he says the communists say the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. So what they say is not what they're about. And as my Venezuelan said, they tricked us. They lied to us. We fell for it, and we fell into the trap. You got to educate these people. You're falling into the trap. Don't fall for it. The other one is the opportunists in the looting. Where there's action, there's going to be opportunists who want to sweep in and loot everything when they've got the opportunity for it. We've got it up against us, the media. 24 hours of feeding of fear and propaganda. I'm telling you, just look at this virus issue, what's being said. I mean, the fury of fear-mongering is incredible. But also this fear of Black lives and what's going to happen to you if you don't kneel and give the sign. It just makes y'all so afraid that you're willing to do it. I have to go back one other thing. One other thing that they were doing in Chile that was pretty darn disturbing was if you did have a car and were trying to get around the city, the young kids would do this, the high school kids. They'd get together in gangs of like 100, 200 of them and block traffic. And what was fun for them, block the traffic, and they're there with their baseball bats and everything, but they block the traffic and say, get out and dance. And if you don't get out and dance, we're not letting you through, we're going to smash your car. So it's kind of a way of getting them to kneel and give the sign, right? So this is coming to America. I saw that, I'm moving to Denver, and Denver they've blocked the highway several times. And that kind of stuff is coming too. We've already seen shootings and things like that. So I want you to imagine you're driving in your car and suddenly the traffic isn't moving and there's a mob in front of you and you can't get out because there's cars behind you. What are you going to do?
Step on the gas.
Well, that's assuming that you're the front car. What if you're back 3 or 4 and the cars in front of you are not going to move and they're going to politely wait for the police to come? What are you going to do? These are things that we have to start thinking about because it's going to get worse. And these are the kind of tactics that they're going to use on us. And this is terrorism. This was what it's like to live under anarchy. Anarchy is, as I found, the police are so darn busy trying to save their own lives. They're at war themselves. You think if I called the police, they were going to come and save me? Heck no. We are up against spineless leaders, very few leaders who are willing to take this on. And I already mentioned this before, the willingness to throw out everything and replace it with the people who say, yeah, but this is bad and we got to get rid of it. Ask them that question. What would you replace it with? And if they don't have an answer for it, they are pretty well your enemy too, or will quickly need to be educated. Educate them pretty quick or you're going to be fighting against them also.
Leah?
Yes.
Well, Don first.
Yes, Don.
Yeah, but the problem is that people that appear to be reasonably intelligent, and you start talking about the convention of the states, and they're convinced that they're smarter than the other side that have been waiting for this.
Yes. Then use stories. What affected me so much was my Venezuelan friends saying the Cubans were warning us and we wouldn't listen to them. And now we're trying to warn the Chileans and the Chileans won't listen to us. And now I'm trying to warn you and you aren't going to listen to me. When are you going to listen to me? When it's too late? And sadly, yes, most people will not listen to you until it's too late. I have the example of the Birch Society. How many of you have been listening to Birch Society and believed anything that we said over the past 60 years? Or how many of you were out also calling us the conspiracy theorists? We aren't conspiracy theorists, we're conspiracy factists. And we had the facts on it all the way along. I just have to point them out here. We have the senior editor of the New American Magazine who's been writing for 40 plus years, Bill Jasper over here. Please stand up. One of these great men who's been warning us and showing us all the facts for all these years, and most people didn't want to hear what he had to say. But everything that he and the others have been warning about has come to pass. It's here, it's in our face, and you can't deny it anymore. So sadly, even you weren't ready to hear it until it's in your face. Until you have to face, like I did, until you have to go out to defend your own grocery store, after you have to chase people out of your own street, after you have to try to sleep at night wondering if they're going to firebomb your house, or or get into the metro and them set fire to things down and you're underground, and how am I going to get out from underground if they set this subway on fire while I'm underground? I mean, until you live under that, maybe you're not ready to hear this message. Most people are not going to be ready to hear this message. But as it gets worse, more people are willing to hear this message. I had 2 friends recently who came up to me and said, Leah, I'm hearing some things and it just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound right. And I think you could tell me the truth. And I said, wait, I've tried telling you the truth before and you didn't want to hear it. And they said, I'm ready now. Give it to me. One of them said, Leah, have you heard about the red pill? I said, yeah, are you ready to take it?
Yeah.
So people are coming to me now that did not want to hear it before, and they know I know the truth and the reality, and they're willing to listen now. So one of my last slides here is, have we lost our orientation? I consider our nation, and certainly Chile, a broken compass. A good compass always points north. We have our orientation. We know exactly where we are because it always points north. What gives us that guidance? I'm going to switch this around a little bit because somebody corrected me last night and said somebody needs to be on the top there. And that's the Judeo-Christian values. That is what this country was founded upon, whether you're religious or not. It is those values that gave us this great nation. And we're losing them. We have been for a long time. And how are we going to bring that back? We also were founded on a resistance to tyranny. I've made it my motto now that I just say, I am the spirit of resistance. We are the spirit of resistance. Resist, resist, resist. I actually used it today. I was at the DMV up in Sandpoint, and I was trying to engage some people over the silliness of take a number and wait outside and we'll let you in when, because we can only have 2 people in the building at one time, and so I was trying to engage some people. And one guy pulled his number and walked past us as we were talking, and I could tell he was wearing a mask, and I could tell he wasn't happy with what I was saying. And he got a little bit further away, and I said, not me, I'm going to resist. So we're not always favored for our resistance. But this is what America was founded on. We wouldn't tolerate tyranny, and we don't need to be tolerating tyranny now or ever. Our desire for limited government. A good example is that my brother is 3 years older than I, and he got civics lessons, and I didn't by the time I was in high school. It was called social studies, and we didn't get civics anymore. So from my age range on down, have not had civics. We don't even understand our form of government. We do not understand that it was the division of power, the checks and balances on power that gave us freedom. Power is our enemy, and that has to be brought back, and we have to recognize who and what the enemy is. Individual rights is who we are. Property rights is who we are. We cannot have liberty without property rights. Love of freedom and personal responsibility. This was our guiding compass. This is what our north orientation was. And now it's like there's a magnet. Do you sense the magnet around the compass right now? Because the compass is just like going wild. Upside is down, south is north, east is west, and the compass is just like spinning around right now. There's a magnet pulling on it, and we've lost our sense of direction.
Leah,
Yes.
you skipped over on the Christian values, and
I made that the first one.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
fine. Well, that was a J.
Yeah.
Anyway, that ties in with the previous one about the spineless leaders.
Yeah.
And we know we've got a lot of spineless leaders, and they are
Including church leaders.
Well, that was my point.
Yes.
That was exactly
For
my
any of you
point.
who do not know, please go back and study the Black Robe Regiment.
That's exactly right. That was what we're lacking here is pastors in the pulpit who are willing to say you need to get out there and vote, you need to read the Constitution, you need to do all these things that made this country great, and you've got to fight abortion, you've got to do all of these things, and they won't do it.
And
They are lacking
in the
that
end,
spine.
defend and stand for what
Exactly.
is right. So we face a choice. We can either divide and turn against each other, which they're doing a heck of a good job right now, and we're going to fall prey to a revolution that will overthrow everything that we once valued. That is their goal, divide us and get us to fight against each other. Or we can unite in a common interest against the abuse of all power. The abuse of power is the enemy, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats or the local city commissioners or whatever you want to say. It's the abuse of power that is our enemy. That's what we need to focus on, and that's what we can unite on. We all have to agree that power is being abused. And what this battle is for is, I love to use the analogy of the Lord of the Rings. This is the battle for the ring of power. Whoever gains the ring rules the world. This is about one world government. This is about total dominance over the world. I thought, somewhat naively, that I wanted to figure out how Chile worked. Not that I was ready to live there permanently. But you know, if things really got bad, I could always go somewhere else. You know what I learned? There's nowhere else to go. This is a global battle. This is a global battle, and there will not be a country where you can get out of this. So we may as well stand and defend what we've got right here. Yes?
My concern is that the virus coming out of China, and I heard Bill Gates the other day say they didn't get the achieved result with the first pandemic, and so he's talking about a second pandemic. So my concern is, I think in Idaho, our window of opportunity to shut this thing down is very small, because we already went into our extreme emergency, now we're in emergency, and there's, as far as I'm concerned, an abuse of power, a power grab. And so, I guess my question is, I don't know what's gonna happen with the second pandemic and how much more power is gonna be taken. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
I have many thoughts on it, and I think you're right. I think it is going to happen. And all I can say is the mottos to myself: just say no. And the spirit of resistance.
Do not comply.
And the more of us that resist, the better chance we have. They're going to have to take us all if we all stand against us. So the more we have on our side, the better. So the more people we convince that we can't go along with these things. Even the mask thing, we can't continue on. We have to admit that life at some point has to return to normal. My final slide here, and then I'm done. Will you join us in this epic battle? And JBS founder Robert Welch said, "Education is our total strategy, and truth is our only weapon." Please join us if you'd like to know more about the Birch Society. I encourage you, please donate a little bit of money, specifically for the rental of this room. There were people gracious enough to sponsor this. I'm not earning any money off of it, so please help donate and support these organizations that are providing the education that we need to win this battle.
And when and where are the meetings? The Birch meetings?
I talked to Caleb back there. Yeah, I know I don't want to keep everybody here much longer,
So
but
announce
please.
Announce it so we can all hear. Ask
Well,
someone.
I don't know. It isn't necessarily, just talk to them and they will tell you when and where, because there's different chapters in different areas. So he can put you in touch depending on where you live, what's most convenient for you. But please talk to him afterwards.
One
Yes.
question.
Yes.
You know, because the thing that was really surprising was, I was still under this rubric that Chile was the economic miracle. Were the people not working? Did they just quit going to their jobs to riot and protest, or?
The universities were the big promoters about this, okay? The professors at the university were really promoting it. Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you. The university professors were really behind this, and so the students could easily take off school to go protest. So that was most of what was happening. Even the high school kids were taking off school to go out and riot and loot and protest. And yes, some of the people, they would use the excuse to get off work early and then go and protest and do their thing. One other thing that I absolutely forgot to mention is that if any of you are interested in hearing more about my story, it has been a wild ride for 7 years, and many of you have been followers of mine on email that I allowed you into my private life, and you got to hear probably more than you wanted to hear. You guys were on that list too, weren't you? And many of the people begged me and said, Leah, you're writing a book. You have to turn this into a book. And so I am working on it. It's getting close to being done. If you're interested in being made aware of when the book is ready, there's a sign-up sheet up here. Just leave your name and email, and I'll let you know when the book is ready. And you're welcome to ask. I don't want to hold people here, so if you have questions, please come up and talk to me. Yeah? Thank you very much, Northwest Providence.
Yeah. Thank you, Leah. Great presentation. Before we go, what are we all going to do about it from what we just heard? The best thing to do right now is to plug in somewhere. Plug in the internet, Facebook, one of the groups. Our group in particular, NWPOA, you can find us at nwpoa.org on the internet. And we're also on Facebook. And what we try to do is we try to organize people of things that are going on right now. Things that have to do with the counties, the cities, property taxes, issues with the water or power. And it's free to join our organization, and we'll send you emails every once in a while. We'll let you know where there's a place that you can show up and make a difference. We also will spread the word on protecting the downtown, all the different things that we need to do. The power is in the numbers. So if we can organize and figure out a way to build our numbers, that's where we have our strength. The other side, the anti-American side, of course, they get funding from Planned Parenthood and they get funding from George Soros. But we have the numbers. We're the good Americans, especially in our community. So, I implore you all to plug in somewhere or into our group. It would be great. So, but thank you for all coming out. It's getting late and we got to pack up the room by 9. So. Thank you, everybody.